Syracuse football is going to lose a lot of key production on offense next season. But don't worry, because there are some reinforcements in the system.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And folks, on today's show, we are talking Syracuse football, of course, and the fact that the Orange are going to have to replace three key offensive players from this past season. You got LeQuint Allen, Jackson Meeks, and Oronde Gadsden. And I'm here to tell you right now, folks, it's not going to be easy to replace those three players, but they do have some quality players in the system that I think can do at least a serviceable job, if not more, in replacing these three players. We're going to talk about how the Orange can simply replace Oronde Gadsden with a former four-star tight end in Jamie Tremble. We're also going to talk about a breakout wide receiver candidate in Darrell Gill, who can replace Jackson Meeks. But first, we're going to begin the podcast talking about how two running backs can fill the void of LeQuint Allen. So plenty to come on this edition of Locked On Syracuse. Before we get to everything, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So, the three players that the Orange are going to lose all to the NFL draft are the following players. You got LeQuint Allen, the running back, back-to-back All-ACC selections, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and he had 20 total touchdowns in 2024. You got Jackson Meeks, second-team All-ACC in 2024, and over 1,000 yards receiving. And you also have Oronde Gadsden, first-team All-ACC, an AP third-team All-American. So he is a phenomenal tight end. All of them are going to the NFL draft. The only one that could maybe come back, ironically, is Jackson Meeks, because if the NCAA grants everyone a fifth year of eligibility, then Meeks would be allowed to come back. But I don't see LeQuint Allen or Oronde Gadsden coming back because they still had more eligibility left and decided to forego it and enter the NFL draft anyway. But I digress. Let's talk about replacing those guys. And we're going to talk about replacing LeQuint Allen first. I do not think there is a one-for-one replacement on the roster for LeQuint Allen. However, I do think there are two players that can replace Allen, and that's Yasin Willis and Will Nixon, okay? It's kind of ironic because when LeQuint Allen had to step in as the starting running back, he was a one-for-one replacement for Sean Tucker, but I don't see that being the case this time around. Let's talk about Yasin Willis. Willis is set to be a true sophomore for this upcoming season. He was a 2024 Rivals four-star recruit. He was a three-star recruit on every other recruiting service, but he was a high-end three-star on those services. In 2024, he played 11 games, and he certainly got a decent amount of carries in those 11 games. 36 carries for 130 yards, which is 3.6 yards per carry, with one touchdown. He also had 8 catches. I think Willis next season, as of right now, he projects to be a first and second down running back. He's a big guy. Willis is listed on the Syracuse website as 6'1", 225 pounds. He's a big guy. That's a lot of size at the running back position. And he's pretty fast as well. So he's more of a thumper, in my opinion. That's why I say a first and second down back who can play smash mouth football for Syracuse, okay? And then you got Will Nixon. Will Nixon is the former Washington transfer from this past season, and he is the son of Syracuse offensive coordinator Jeff Nixon. In 2024, his year was cut short due to injury. We'll talk about that in just a second. He played in 3 games, and in those 3 games, he had 19 carries for 76 yards, which is exactly 4 yards a carry. And he also had 4 catches for 44 yards. Will Nixon is a receiving back. Okay, so you got Yasin Willis, who can maybe replace the rushing production of LeQuint Allen. And then you have Will Nixon, who might be able to replace the receiving production from LeQuint Allen. The reason why I say Will Nixon is more of a pass-catching running back is because he began his collegiate career as a wide receiver at Nebraska. I believe he changed positions when he transferred to Washington. So that's well before Syracuse. It's not like Syracuse made the positional switch. It was Washington that did it. But he started his career as a wide receiver and moved to running back. The issue with Will Nixon is health. I mentioned how his year was cut short due to injury this past season. And, well, he's coming off a Liz Frank injury, which is a fancy way of saying a broken foot. It's actually the same injury that Oronde Gadsden suffered in 2023 in the second game of the season against Western Michigan that caused OG to miss the entire year. And Oronde Gadsden, it was kind of up in the air whether or not he was going to play in week 1 for a long time. We didn't know for sure until right before week 1 that he was going to play against Ohio. So I guess the question with Will Nixon is this: is he going to be healthy for the opener against Tennessee? Because he suffered the injury later on in the season than Oronde Gadsden. And I understand that everyone heals differently, but still, if you want to say that it's the same time frame of recovery, well, then Will Nixon's going to come back later than Oronde Gadsden did. And Oronde Gadsden almost didn't play in week 1. Does that mean Will Nixon's going to be out? I don't know, but hey, we'll find out in the coming months what's up with Will Nixon. But overall, assuming that they're both healthy, Yasin Willis and Will Nixon, I think that is the duo right now that is the leading candidates to replace LeQuint Allen. It's also possible someone on the depth chart emerges that we're not thinking of. Malachi James, Jaden Hart potentially. Those guys maybe could step up and take the lead back. It's open, right? So someone could emerge. It's also possible that the Orange should go in the transfer portal and get a running back, whether it's someone who's going to start for the Orange or someone that's just another depth piece. If you recall, they got Will Nixon last year very late. They got him in the summer. I believe it was in May when they signed Will Nixon in the transfer portal, because he entered, I believe, in the second transfer portal window in the spring, and the Orange got him. But for right now, I believe that Syracuse is going to roll with Yasin Willis as a first and second down running back, and then Will Nixon as a third down running back to replace LeQuint Allen. Leave a comment in the comment section below what you would do to replace LeQuint Allen. Do you like Yasin Willis and Will Nixon as a tandem? Is there someone else that I'm not thinking of? Leave a comment in the comment section below, as well as also, should they add a running back in the transfer portal? Okay, so that's it for replacing the two-time All-ACC running back LeQuint Allen. Once again, best of luck to LeQuint in the 2025 NFL Draft. Now, coming up, we're going to talk about how one key wide receiver is gone for Syracuse football, but there is someone on the depth chart who may just be a one-for-one replacement. So stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. Now, as of right now, at the time of this recording, the NFL playoffs have not technically begun, but if I had to place a wager on a team that's going to win the Super Bowl, it's hard to bet against Kansas City. Are you ready for this? I think it might be Buffalo's year. That's right. I think the Buffalo Bills are going to win the Super Bowl. And if you agree with me or disagree with me, well, you can put your money where your mouth is at FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I'm Jackson Holzer, and this is Locked On Syracuse. And folks, if you like what you're hearing, be sure to drop a like and hit that subscribe button so this channel can reach all Syracuse Orange fans. On this edition of Locked On Syracuse, we're talking about how the Orange can replace three key skill position players: LeQuint Allen, Jackson Meeks, and Oronde Gadsden. In the first segment, we talked about how the Orange don't have a one-for-one replacement for LeQuint Allen, okay? But right now, it should be Yasin, Willis, and Will Nixon. We'll see what else the Orange can do this offseason. For this segment, we're going to talk about how Syracuse can replace Jackson Meeks. And while it's going to be tough to replace 1,000 yards receiving and a second-team All-ACC wide receiver, I do think there is a wide receiver on the roster who is primed to take a big step in 2025. And that is Darrell Gill. Darrell Gill is set to be a true junior. He is 6'3", 175 pounds, and he was mostly a depth wide receiver for the Orange this past season. But that's because they had a lot of weapons. This was a very, very talented Syracuse football offense. Probably the most talented Syracuse offense in over 2 decades. I think it's more talented than the 2018 team. Okay? Darrell Gill was a depth piece, and I think he's ready for the next step, all right? In 2023, as a true freshman, Darrell Gill played in 13 games. He had 7 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown. He's a true freshman, solely a depth guy, special teams, not getting on the field a lot. Okay. He's a true freshman. We understand. And it's football. It's really, really difficult as a true freshman to make an impact in football. That's why when they do, you get very, very excited. In 2024, though, as a true sophomore, Darrell Gill took a huge leap. He played in 12 games, and in those 12 games, he had 31 catches for 570 yards and 2 touchdowns. So after all this, I came up with 3 reasons why I believe that Darrell Gill is ready for the next step. Number 1, Darrell Gill took a big jump from 2023 to 2024. Every stat went up aside from games played. It went from 13 games to 12 games. He missed a game in there, okay? But he went from 7 catches to 31 catches. He went from 60 yards to 570 yards. He went from 1 touchdown to 2 touchdowns. So he got significantly better in just 1 season. Number 2, Darrell Gill is entering his 3rd year of college. So you can maybe expect a 3rd year leap. That 3rd year is really big in college and also in the NFL. It's often that line of demarcation, the 3rd year, right? Because your first year is a rookie year. Okay, fine. Your 2nd year, all right, let's see you develop a little bit. Okay, 3rd year, now it's time to really hit the ground running. And Darrell Gill right now is just going up and up and up and up and up. And now he's entering year 3. And the final reason, Darrell Gill did really well in 2024. I believe he had 2 100-yard games in the final 3 games of the year. He did really well, and he wasn't listed very high on Syracuse's depth chart. He wasn't, because there were a lot of weapons. So the fact that he was able to still get on the field at times and produce when he was on the field is a positive sign that he is ready to take the next step. Let's give a way too early prediction on Darrell Gill. I'm going to be ultra conservative, okay, and say that Darrell Gill next year will at least surpass 700 yards. I think it's too early to project a little bit more than that because it's January 5th at the time of this recording. The Orange aren't playing another game until late August. So there's an entire offseason to go. You still got spring ball, the spring transfer portal window, and of course you got fall camp. So there's so much time for roster changes, the depth chart to move around. Who knows, right? So right now, I'm going to be conservative and say that Darrell Gill will surpass at least 700 yards this upcoming season. But I do think he can certainly go a lot higher than that. I do. I just want to put that on the record. But I think 700 is a nice, realistic expectation for Darrell Gill to not only hit that mark, but to actually exceed that mark. I think if you project him like 1,000 yards next year, then you're just left to be disappointed when he goes for 750. But if you project him for 700 and he goes for, let's say, 800, you're feeling pretty good. But hey, I reserve the right to change my mind because it's January 5th on these predictions. I think the key takeaway, though, for this entire segment is this. Darrell Gill, it's not going to be easy to replace Jackson Meeks. And this is not meant to be disrespect against Jackson Meeks. But I think that Darrell Gill can do a very fine job of it next season. Leave a comment in the comment section below your thoughts. Is there another receiver that you think could break out for the Orange next year and help fill the void of Jackson Meeks? Really, in this segment, I only talked about Darrell Gill, but there are plenty of other players on the roster who could take the next step in their development. There's a 4-star wide receiver, right? Emmanuel Ross. Umari Hatcher's still here. Zeed Haynes, Justice Ross Simmons, Hornsby, another guy. There's a lot of receivers here, but I think Darrell Gill is the one who is primed for a big 2025. Okay? So the Orange can replace Jackson Meeks with Darrell Gill. Now coming up, this next player we're going to talk about is solely really potential. We don't have a lot of data points on him, but this player could potentially replace Oronde Gadsden. Attending the new 12-team college football playoff is an incredible experience that brings fans together like never before. I remember the excitement of past playoff games and can't wait to make new memories with the updated playoff format and extra teams involved. Game Time is a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And recently, I used Game Time Picks to find tickets for an upcoming game. Browsing through the deals was a breeze, and I found great value for all kinds of seats around the venue. The Super Deal in particular stood out as the best value for the event. I love that I could see the seat views before buying and that the app shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, the on-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantee gave me complete peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account. And use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Oronde Gadsden was a 2-time All-American for Syracuse football at tight end. Obviously, it's not going to be easy to replace him. All-Americans just don't grow on trees. That's not how it works. And he's going to be, hopefully, a productive NFL player. I'm a New York Jets fan. I hope they draft him. Actually, maybe I don't hope they draft him because then he would be cursed. It's the New York Jets, right? But I digress. How does Syracuse replace a guy like Oronde Gadsden? Well, let me tell you. If you're a more casual fan, you might be wondering who this player is. Jamie Tremble. And if you're a casual fan, that's okay. That's why I'm here to tell you who Jamie Tremble is. For those that don't know, Tremble was a true freshman this past season. He played in 12 games. He had 1 catch for 19 yards, which came against Holy Cross. But that's okay, and here's why. Number one, Jamie Tremble was a true freshman and the 3rd tight end on the depth chart clearly because Oronde Gadsden thankfully stayed healthy the whole year. Dan Villari is a different tight end than both Oronde Gadsden and Jamie Tremble. So if you had Jamie Tremble as the backup, it would have been too redundant. So therefore, it was Dan Villari who was 2nd on the depth chart. The other reason is because, let's face it, Jamie Tremble is a highly touted prospect, okay? And he was able to sit and learn for most of this season. He was a near consensus 4-star tight end recruit in 2024. That's very recent. Right? And he's also listed at 6'4", 210 pounds. And the beauty of a guy like Jamie Tremble is his comparison, his prototype is essentially Oronde Gadsden. He's a pass-catching tight end. That's Oronde Gadsden, right? Now, Oronde Gadsden's gotten better with blocking over time. Sure. But we all know OG is most known for catching passes. It's the same thing with a guy like Jamie Tremble. In fact, when I had Locked On recruiting expert Brian Smith on numerous times over last season, and don't worry, we'll get him back on at some point in the near future, he said that Tremble is an excellent prospect. He just has to hit the weight room in his true freshman year. For what it's worth, Oronde Gadsden is listed at 6'5", 235 pounds. So ideally, a guy like Tremble could put on roughly 25 pounds in the next year. And then he's essentially an Oronde Gadsden lookalike, with the Oronde Gadsden prototype of being a pass-catching tight end. I'll admit that we don't have a lot of data points on Jamie Tremble. We don't. I am mainly basing this off of potential based on recruiting rankings, which can be wrong at times. Recruiting rankings get things wrong. They're generally more right, but they can still get things wrong, right? But I do want to point your attention to this. Now, maybe this is me being poorly researched, but I would like to think that I do an extensive amount of research before every podcast that I do. I have not seen the Orange connected to a tight end in the transfer portal this offseason. I haven't seen it. I've seen them connected to a running back. That was a while ago. They've actually added 2 wide receivers, 2 depth guys, Chris Long and Tyshawn Russell. Where's the tight end that they're going after in the portal? I don't see it. Now, if I'm wrong, leave a comment in the comment section below and just put a link in there. Hey, Jackson, you missed it. 24/7 Sports right here, tight end visiting Syracuse. Okay, I'll admit that if you can find it, but I can't. So what that tells me is this. I think Fran Brown and this coaching staff, I think they're more than fine with Jamie Tremble being the #1 tight end next season as a replacement to Oronde Gadsden, and Dan Villari once again being the backup tight end who is at very minimum a good blocking tight end and at maximum can be your wildcat quarterback and maybe can catch a pass here or there. I think it could be a solid duo once again. Instead of Oronde Gadsden, you have Jamie Tremble. So overall, the takeaway of this segment is this. It's purely potential, but Jamie Tremble could be the guy that replaces 2-time All-American Oronde Gadsden. Are you worried about it? Do you think that Syracuse should add a tight end in the transfer portal that can start? Leave a comment in the comment section below. As far as what is coming up on the podcast in the future, tomorrow I want to do a full Syracuse football roster outlook because Chris Thomas, the defensive lineman from Marshall, he recently committed, right? He transferred from Marshall to Syracuse the other day. So I want to talk about the defensive line, other needs for Syracuse on defense, and then to end that podcast, we'll talk about other needs for Syracuse football on offense, okay? So that's what I want to do tomorrow. On Tuesday, Syracuse basketball is back in action. Take that for what it's worth. They are playing Georgia Tech at 7 p.m. Eastern, and there will be a full post-game reaction podcast. Okay? I hope that Syracuse basketball wins that game, and the game is far more entertaining than this podcast. That's my hope. But I can't guarantee it. All right, so that's what's coming up. And of course, if there is any breaking news, specifically regarding Kyle McCord, I will be here on Locked On Syracuse to break it all down. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. And for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On ACC podcast. I'm actually filling in for Alex Dano for tomorrow, and I'll be with Kenton Gibbs. We're going to keep it real and bring you the truth about where your favorite ACC team stands within the conference. And yes, that includes Syracuse, right? I'm going to be taking off my orange-colored glasses and giving a more objective outlook of the ACC. You can find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you liked this video, click that like button. If you really liked it, subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications so you know right away when I am dropping the next podcast. And folks, I imagine that over the next couple of days and weeks, there is going to be plenty of breaking news And that's why when you hit that subscribe button, you're going to want to hit those notifications so you know when I am dropping the next podcast, okay? Everyone, I will see you all again very soon.